Good afternoon and welcome everyone. Edward, can you please confirm that the session is being recorded?
Yes, I confirm we're recording.
And are there any changes to the agenda today?
No, there are not.
Okay, I'll take silence to indicate that there are no conflicts of interest with any panelists on this proposal. Okay, on the agenda today is the review of 468 to 474 Millen Road. The lead planner in the file is Mark McNiak, who is available to answer any policy questions, and Edward Winter will make a brief presentation. Good afternoon, Edward. We're ready for your presentation. Please keep the presentation under 5 minutes.
Okay. All right, yes, today we have 468, 474 Millen Road in Stoney Creek. The proposed development shown here, bound in orange, includes a 15-story multiple residence with 215 dwelling units, 274 parking spaces, and approximately 72 square meters of bicycle parking. The subject site is located near Lake Ontario and a waterfront trail. The development proposal will require zoning bylaw amendment to facilitate the construction of the proposed residence. All right. And so our DRP panel is familiar with this site. We saw 2 months ago an adjacent property at 8 Shoreview. So I think we'll have good insight to the context of this proposal. Okay, so here we see the subject lands from the south on North Service Road, looking north. The property starts at that tree line there. Okay, now we're looking east along Shoreview Place towards the property, which is behind where this truck is turning right. And here we have a conceptual site plan with Millen Road and North Service Road and bounding on the bottom and left. The tower is this irregular V shape, and we have some amenity space to the north against an easement and one access off of Millen Road. Policy environment here, we are neighborhoods, and as mentioned, we are adjacent to Lake Ontario, and on the south side of the QEW, there's an employment area. Questions for our discussion today. Does the proposal represent compatible integration with the surrounding area in terms of its use, scale, form, and character? Does the proposal organize space in a logical manner through the design, placement, and construction of new buildings, streets, structures, and landscaping? And finally, does the proposal create a high-quality, safe streetscape, park and open space that encourage physical activity and active transportation? And that's the staff summary.
Okay, we're ready for the consultant to provide additional information. Please keep your presentation to under 10 minutes.
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Mary Lou Tanner, and I am with NPG Planning Solutions, and we are the lead planners on this file. Joining me from the consulting team, who will be sharing the presentation, is Reza Islami, who will be sharing his screen, and Mario from Odessa Architects. So to begin, thank you very much for your time today. This is a rendering of the proposed building, and it is located on the east side of Millen Road, north of North Service Road in Stoney Creek. We'll go to the next slide, please. This is a context slide that shows you the subject lands. You can see within 800 meters, we have the QEW as a major boundary to the south of the property, and then south of the QEW is a significant amount of industrial land. Our site is located at the northeast corner, and I just do want to note that we have acquired the corner parcel in the staff presentation. There was a notch out of the property boundary, but we have acquired that corner parcel. So you can see in the small inset the property boundary. To the east of our site is a commercial motel. North of us is the Bal Harbour development, which is a townhouse condominium development. Mr. Winter shared with you the Seasons residential development, as well as a number of developments that have been proposed, as well as some that are under construction further to the west. We are also very near the waterfront trail and the waterfront park system. We'll go to the next slide, please. This is the subject lands shown on the right-hand side of this picture. You can see the Seasons existing retirement building, which is 9 stories on the left side, and Millen Road and the view corridor to Lake Ontario. It's important to note that at the end of Lake Ontario, there is a small access area. The Bal Harbour development driveway is off of where Shoreview and Millen connect, just north of our site. We'll go to the next slide, please. So on the left, you can see another view of the Seasons Retirement Building, which is located west of us. And then for context, the Bal Harbour townhouses, which are directly north of us. And this is a view from the street looking at their driveway entrance, which I just mentioned. Next slide, please. There is an awful lot of development going on in this part of Stoney Creek, some of which is built, some of which is under construction. Just starting on the eastern side, you can see our site, the 9-story Seasons Retirement Community, the 8 Shoreview Place development that you did review in August, the Bayliner condominium complex, which is existing, and then 310 Francis Avenue, which is three towers of varying heights, and which has been approved at the northeast corner, North Service Road in Francis, and then 461 Green Road, which is 16 stories, and that is the project that is currently under construction. Next slide, please. I'll now turn it over to Reza, who will take you through the proposed development overview. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to review and provide valuable feedback to our design proposal. The building location and shape has been driven by many factors. The east wing is parallel to the east property line with a setback of 12.5 meters to ensure adequate separation to any potential future development to the land east of us. The west wing is in an angle to Millen Road, but parallel to the retirement building to the west of us, to not only create a visual dialogue with the existing building, but also to open up the building's presence at Millen Road by creating a fully landscaped, amenity-grade quality environment that not only creates a welcoming feature to the main entrance of our building, but also to provide pops that other neighbors potentially can use as a retreat. It's right here. You see my cursor moving, right?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. This approach is translated to a building that has opened itself up from the core, housing the corridors in the inner part and enabling an optimized view of all the units towards the lake. And this is as if the building has become a sail pointing towards the sea. This opened up shape also creates a less effect to the units north of us by narrowing down, and then a larger mass to the south, which is towards the highway. That only helps, not only helps blocking the highway noise to the townhouses, but also creates a dynamic presence of the building viewed from the highway. It's as if these created different building blocks moving and turning, jockeying for position. They keep stepping inwards as they go up, and the same stepping is happening on the north facade facing the lake, easing off the mass of the building on the north of us. Let me go back to this site plan. Over here, we have provided the driveway entrance to the site, and it's moved up, staying more than 50 meters away from the intersection of Millen Road and North Service Road, which was a requirement. This little hard surface area will also lead to the enclosed ramp right over here, which takes the cars to the underground garage and also leads to an enclosed loading area for garbage and loading of the building. This has enabled us to open up the remainder of the site and provide as much landscaping as possible. This is as if we've brought back the tower in the park concept that you hardly can find in any new developments. This amount of green outdoor amenity space and other sustainable measures has enabled us to encourage a healthy living for the residents of this building. There are other sustainability measures that we have provided or exploring for their potential, which are the bicycle parkings, EV connections, and basically rough-ins. And we will also be exploring a green roof design following the City of Hamilton's guidelines. And also, we are also exploring the use of geothermal for the heating and cooling of the building. And other areas to explore would be the use of, let's say, stormwater for irrigation on the site. It is also Icon Architects' mandate to incorporate solar panels in the buildings we design. And certainly we will be exploring this option for this building as well. Over here, this is the roof of the building, basically the 15th floor, which only is the indoor amenity, a rooftop terrace, which is facing lake, and mechanical penthouse. We've located this indoor amenity towards the south part and have put the terrace to the north, not only to get a perfect view of the lake, but also mask the outdoor amenity from the highway noise. This is an aerial view of the building, and you see how the stepping is happening in the front of the building as well, towards the townhouses and towards the lake as the building goes up. We performed the shadow study to find the perfect location for our building, and after that, we wanted to basically minimize the amount of shadows that we're casting on the townhouses to the north. And basically these two sections, the section to the top basically depicts if you are assuming a 45-degree angle plane from the base of those buildings where their driveways are, we are completely outside that. Not only that, there are mature trees separating our site to the sites to the north, and we have designed our underground garage pushing the north wall further as much back into the site as possible to basically encourage the maintenance and basically keeping these trees safe and staying away from the tree protection zones. And the other basically elevation shows looking towards the north, showing the south elevation and our building's relation to its existing and future context. I'm gonna scan through the shadow study so you will see how we try to position the building correctly in the site. This is March 21st.
Rez, I just want to flag that you're reaching the end of your time, so just...
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm just gonna fly through this.
Yeah.
And these are the building elevations with the materials that we've chosen. If we have time, I would like to ask Mario, our landscape architect, to talk for a minute, if possible.
If you can make it brief, please.
Mario, it's all yours.
You're on mute if you're talking, Mario.
Sorry about that. I'll speak very briefly. The shape of the building has allowed us to concentrate the bulk of the exterior amenity within the courtyard space and to the southwest of the site, closest to the North Service Road and furthest away from the existing community. We've allowed for a generous forecourt drop-off, which will connect to the municipal sidewalk and the active transportation that exists on both Millen and North Service Road. And preliminary investigation by our arborists, we're fairly confident that we'll be able to maintain the mature vegetation along the boundaries of the site. Further to that point, the easement, as well as the old the previous laneway to the north of the site, there's a fairly dense vegetation there that will remain and will be added to increase that sort of buffer. And really, we've looked at circulations, very preliminary, but the idea is to connect the space to the municipal right of way and allow for connection down to the waterfront trails and the active transportation, and create an abundance of amenity within the footprint of the building as to not impose on the other neighbors.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn it over to the panelists for questions of clarification. First on is Ted.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great, thanks. Thanks for the presentation. I had a question. The angular plane at the cross section that's from the face of the residences on the Cherry Beach Road? You're muted, Reza.
About that. They're from the edge of their driveway, right in front of the townhouses, from that road that they share.
Right, okay.
But even if we were to put it further back, because there's nothing at the back, there's the driveway and then there are parking garages, detached parking garages. But I can reshare my screen to show where that angular plane is and where the location of our building is. Do you want me to do that?
It's okay. I just wanted clarification on that.
Oh, sure.
The other questions I had, and this might be a question for planning. The 14-meter MTO setback on the south and the easement on the north, pretty substantial areas of space. Is that a consistent? Are there any? Can that be used in a way that can provide public amenity? Can those be thought of as an opportunity at this stage to make some connectivity?
Perhaps I can start and maybe city staff can comment on that. It is a standard MTO setback that is required along the QEW. The ability to provide amenity space is available, but it is highly restricted. And in terms of the easement, there are restrictions related to that as well. So it could be landscaping and amenity space, but those are two constraints for the site.
Thank you, Mary Lou. And I just wanted to add for the MTO setback, the MTO prohibits structures within that setback. So like as she said, some amenity space could be used there. And then also they would prohibit anything that is a requirement for the development. So for example, let's say a parking space, if that parking space was required to meet the minimum parking requirement, it would be allowed to be located within that area.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. And the last question, I couldn't really tell from the plans or the elevations provided, but the courtyard has corridors, single loaded corridors that are facing into the corridor. I'm assuming those are glazed. Are they for daylight?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Part of it, we're still basically going through the design, but it is fully glazed where it is facing outside, where it is an outside wall. We are exploring maybe put some lockers in the northern part of it where the break between the two corridors happen, but the majority is fully glazed. Absolutely, yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Dana?
Yeah, my questions are around the number of bike parking spaces provided. I noticed in the presentation, you noted there was 72 square meters of bike parking. I just wondered how many spaces that you guys are intending to provide.
Let me find that number for you.
Okay. And then my second question is, what percentage of units has private amenity space in the form of a balcony? Approximately.
I have to get back to you as what that number is, but majority of them have their balconies out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'm just looking for ballpark ranges. Thank you.
I just been notified that at this time we have the area allocated for the bicycle parking. We haven't gone through putting how many bicycle parking we can fit in, but certainly we will basically abide by the standards.
Okay, thank you.
Jennifer Sison.
Thank you. Thanks, Mary, Reza, and Mario, and Edward for your presentations. I had two questions. One was about, I think you talked a little bit about the plan to connect to the waterfront trails. The pathway that you're showing on the east side of Millen, is that kind of the intent is to connect there?
We're showing, sorry, you're saying on the west side?
Yeah, so right-hand side, on the same side as the property. So you're kind of going to the north on along Millen.
The intention is just the pathway connections will lead out to the municipal sidewalk on Millen. And there currently isn't, I recognize that it stops because it passes over the easement, the former right of way, and you have to cross that driveway, but the intention is to connect to there to get down to the waterfront trail. It would obviously require some coordination with the city to complete the connection. And there is currently a bike lane on Millen that does connect down.
Okay. And my second question was, I was wondering how the proposed bike storage area is accessed. Is that just straight off the same entry as the garage or the loading space?
No, they have their own private entrance exit door to the outside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that at, sorry, I didn't see where that was in the plans. Is that at the back side? I guess that would be the east.
Let me share. I'll show it to you.
Thanks.
You see my screen?
Not yet.
Oh, sorry. I haven't hit share yet. Okay, so this is our loading area right here. That's the staging area. That's the garbage room down there. And that's our bike storage, which has the separate entrance right there.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
That's all my questions.
Joey? Joey, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thanks. I just had one question. I've noticed that there are some existing single-family homes on the site, a few of them. I'm wondering if a document and salvage report is required to form part of future submission.
Mary Lou, do you want to respond?
Yes, we have not been advised that that will be a requirement.
Okay. Thank you. So Edward, there's no requirement for this project?
I'm going to pass that to Mark.
Yeah, sorry guys. So in the comments for the formal consultation, our cultural heritage staff did not identify any built heritage concerns.
Okay, so are document and salvage reports only required when a building that is going to be removed has heritage status? Just this is for my information moving forward.
I off the top of my head, I'm not sure what
Okay.
the criteria are for requesting those types of reports.
Okay.
Jennifer Mallard?
Thanks, David, and thanks everyone for your presentations. I have no other questions. They've already been asked. Thanks.
I similarly have no other questions, so I'm going to just turn it over to the panel for advice. And I turn it over to Ted to initiate that.
Great. Okay, thank you. So understanding the future of this neighborhood, of this community, I would support this development. I think it generally feels like it's the appropriate level of development for this site, scale of development for the site. And I think there's been a lot of care in thinking about how to organize the planning and the landscape to achieve, you know, a high quality urban outcome. I really like to applaud the sustainable aspects that the proponents bringing forward, and would highly encourage those to be seen through for successful implementation. It's great to see that initiative in these projects. I applaud the protection of the retention of the existing trees, and you know, hoping that the protection plans that are put in place will be adequate to keep them healthy after the building is complete. And I think there's been a lot of thought put into the landscape, which is very nice to see. There's a lot of opportunity there, and my comments around the MTO setback and the easement to the north pertain to, you know, I think these communities are really successful when there's places to walk and to connect with other parts of the neighborhood, and that you're not isolated in a tower, but you can actually get to the park. And clearly the public beach there is the key amenity, but they're, you know, taking advantage of outdoor space and potential connectivity to the east via an easement, depending on what happens next door, I think is an opportunity that should be left open. I think the amenity space at the upper level is fantastic. Beautiful view to the lake. Would like to see the details of how that can be successful at that height, and you know, with wind and other things, and what are the amenities there that ensure that it will be used and enjoyed. And I think the V-shaped courtyard is an interesting, you haven't seen that on this panel, and it's nice to see some creative thinking around a tower, and it's nice to see that. I think it's effective in creating to reduce the scale to the south, to the highway, and the lockers, you know, I think there's opportunities there to make more out of that courtyard space for the residents with daylight and views, and to ensure that that happens. However, I think where it doesn't quite work as successfully is when on the north side, and that gets into the massing, and the north feels like quite a large building, and I think, you know, there could be more thought put into how that becomes a little less maybe bulky in terms of, you know, it's a large plan on the north side. And I think that really, my only really comment is, you know, compliments to the team for this development. I think when it comes to the architecture, again, I think there's some good, a great start in terms of the planning. I find, though, as you look at the ultimately the architectural expression, there's a number of different languages and a number of different massing moves that are happening, and some of them are fighting against the strength of the original you know, proposition or concept. I think they could be reduced, the number of different moves, steps, and materials. I think could the materiality of this building be, it's some of it's got a bit of a corporate feel, you know, more office-y than residential, and perhaps the materiality that could be considered a little more consistent, so that the language kind of shows off the planning solution, the uniqueness of that a little more. It seems to get lost in a lot of the different moves that are happening on the building. So a strengthening of the concept and a reduction of the language to its essence, I think, would be what I would suggest are the next steps. But again, thank you for your submission.
Dana.
Thank you. I also agree with almost all of everything that Ted has said. I do also want to commend you on the sustainability elements. It's great to see that you've come forward with that in the presentation, that you were considering that early on, and that particularly geothermal is something that's on your agenda. And I really hope that you explore that as the design phase evolves. In terms of the architecture, I too feel that it's a little unresolved, particularly on the northern facade and also particularly at grade as you face the street. I think that sometimes with larger buildings with larger floor plates, it's tempting to want to use a variety of materials and articulation to try to break the mass down essentially, but I think you're already achieving that through separating the building and providing that V-shaped massing. So I feel like looking at the architecture in more detail and trying to resolve some of those details and maybe even simplifying it, I think will go a long way in the future and through further design phases. And my second last comment, I guess, is that I think you should strive to really provide as much as you can from a bike parking perspective. I know this is kind of a vehicular oriented area. You have a lot of parking, but I think it would be great to try to change that and have a lot of bike parking. I don't know if it makes sense to like have a smaller garbage space and a larger bike parking space to try to really maximize the ability to store as many bicycles as possible, given this will be along the lakefront. And lastly, just in terms of the glazing, there's a lot of glazing. It's on the lake, a lot of reflective glass. I just really encourage you, given the location, to consider bird-friendly design in the architecture going forward, as this will be possibly a migratory flight path, and we want to make sure that that reflection isn't going to disrupt bird migration. That's everything from me. Thank you.
Jennifer Sison.
Thanks. So I agree with everything that Dana and Ted have commented on, and at the risk of echoing them, I'll also note that I appreciated Rez's comments on sustainability in your presentation. And I was also happy to see the barrier-free circulation design narrative in the design brief. But I do have some concern over pedestrian connections. That connection at the east side of Millen, or I guess the north end of northwest corner of the site, is a real squeeze point. Just with everything going on in there, there's a number of resident mailboxes, a fire hydrant, a gateway feature. So I would really flag that to you for discussion with the city, and see if that's something that you can work on together to make sure that you have that pedestrian connection there, because I think as Ted and Dave have touched on, that connection to the waterfront is really important and is really going to be of service to the residents of this development. I was happy to see in the wind study that you've kind of created a nice little comfort pocket in the center in that V, and how you've kind of integrated all of those landscape features throughout is something that I think is commendable and also helps contribute to that, the comfort that you're getting on site. For the amenity area, in terms of the wind study, I would actually advise against the coniferous plantings that they mentioned lining the entirety of the terrace, at least where you're facing the lake, because I do think that might impede views to the lake. You could look at other upwind mitigation, like it's recommended. The overhead pergolas may be better suited to reducing wind impacts here. I also really appreciate the thoughtfulness you've had in considering visual and shadow impacts to the townhomes to the north. While there are some shadow impacts there, most of those occur later in the evening, so I don't really have a strong concern with any of that. And I appreciate that you've kind of tailored your building massing in terms of that. So thank you for that. I did want to comment on the bike parking as well, with it kind of where it's located between the access for the underground parking and the kind of the loading space. You may be running into some conflicts there, and safety for bike storage users, for cyclists, is going to be really important, as well as how they get to and from that spot in circulation. So if we want to encourage that kind of active transportation, we need to make it easier and better option than car parking. I'm happy to hear that you've got access to that MTO setback area, and that that could potentially be used as future amenity as well. And I would look forward to seeing your full design. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Joey.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, David. Thank you, everyone, for the presentation. I'd like to start with commending you on the specific part of the package, which are the aerial views, the axonometric renderings. I think they were very helpful. Is it possible to bring those up on the screen? Reza, do you mind? I just wanted to speak to. Oh. Thank you. So I think this is an important rendering because it places the proposed project, or the lot of them, it places the project into the larger context, and it allows us to kind of understand how, you know, the massing fits and feels within the context. And also for these types of projects that are new to the area, it also helps us understand how this area is going to develop. So I think these are critical, and I think this is maybe a comment to the city. I don't think we see these types of drawings and renderings enough, and I'd like to suggest that they become part of the requirements for applicants on future submissions. So thank you for putting this together, Reza and team. Also, it's interesting because when I spent a bit of time with these renderings, and it allows you to sort of understand the importance of this project in its context. And Reza, as you mentioned, the visual dialogue that it has with the building across the street, which I think is very important, because not only does it create a visual dialogue, but it also creates a terminating access and a very specific viewpoint from North Service Road towards the water. And I think in this area, this will become important. I also think that with that understanding that the public realm needs to react to that, and the way that you design the public realm, and this is also for you in discussion, or sorry, in response to your design, Mario, the way that kind of, you know, the public realm reacts is very important. The building across the street has all of its sort of vehicular activity happening on the other side of the property, and it allows for a more focused pedestrian realm. Yours is sort of a combination of the two. There's, you know, vehicular passageway for the loading, and then also for drop off. I'm wondering if maybe there's an opportunity to put some of that vehicular movement on the other side of the property, and potentially accessed off of North Service Road to further reinforce the sort of pedestrian activity there, and to, you know, place a, you know, greater investment in the larger public realm. I also think that there's going to be, you know, with this investment, that the city may have to kind of then look at the existing access point from the road to the water, and potentially reconsider how that works, and integrate it better with the infrastructure system. I think the bike lanes is a good start, and I think that this could be, you know, this area could be more about pedestrian movement. What's most important about that is that it'll set precedent for paying attention to the public realm with the other developments that will be happening. It's clear that this type of project is going to densify this sort of lineal strip of this area. So I think something like that is very important. I won't repeat what my colleague said about the attributes of the project. I will speak to the architecture specifically. I think Ted brought up a good point about certain moments in the architecture, or certain elements or moves that are fighting against the strengths of the project. I agree with that. I think, Reza, you had, in your description, we were talking about how certain wings were jockeying for position, and there's a hierarchy that's starting to get set up there when you're talking about all these sort of pieces trying to kind of play against each other, or again, jockey for position or hierarchy. And maybe it goes to what again Ted said about this kind of reduction in language, and maybe that comes in the form becoming simplified, or maybe it's the materials becoming a little bit softer, if that's the right term, or maybe it's one or the other. There's a very kind of complex form happening. I think the massing is great, but the complex form in collaboration with very sort of prominent materials is making for a building, an architecture that maybe feels a little bit out of place in this kind of new community. So maybe there's a consideration for a different material, softer materials, softer forms. I think that's it for me. Thank you. Thank you for a very good project.
So Jennifer, Mallard?
Thank you. I agree with all of the comments from my previously stated from my colleagues. Just a couple of notes of support. I support the density on this site, given the pretty radical transformation that will happen along the lakeshore there. I think the massing moves are fundamentally good. The V-shaped plan, spreading out so that there are more views to the lake from more units. I think that's a good move. I do agree with my colleagues' comments about the expression of the architecture needs clarity. There seems to be too many moves going on, and therefore a lack of hierarchy, of clarity in the forms themselves, or clarity in a base, a middle, and a top. I think another layer of refinement is needed. I'm going to play, on another note, I'm going to play devil's advocate to the comments about sustainability. It's great, the things that you listed, bike parking, EV connections, green roof, geothermal, stormwater retention, photovoltaics. That's all fabulous. But what I don't see that, except for the bike parking, in your presentation. I see a lot of glazing, which is not environmentally friendly or efficient, and I see a lot of thermal breaks in a lot of balconies. So we know that things like geothermal and photovoltaics cost a lot of money, and those are the first things that sort of fall off when the budget has to be reconciled. And if you're going to invest in geothermal, then you should also invest in a building envelope that retains energy more efficiently. So I challenge us all to start from a design position that is the most effective to be energy efficient, and window to wall ratio is a simple start. So sorry to have the heavy hammer on that one, but I completely applaud the commitment to sustainability efforts. I just think we need to think more holistically about them. Those are all my comments. Thanks.
I think you've got some excellent feedback from the panels. I'm not sure I have anything to add here. I think that your project is one that's very interesting, has got lots of potential, and it's come along. And I think the general massing scale of the project is all really, I think, appropriate. We don't have any reservations about supporting it as a panel. I think it's all about the refinement going forward here. I think there's opportunities for refinement on the ground floor that's been talked about in many ways, and the importance of that connection to the north and to the waterfront, and how to make it as pedestrian integration. I think, yeah, there were comments about re-examining where the entry roads are and if there's any opportunity to maybe that northwest area to think of that as a more pedestrian friendly and not sort of prioritizing the service in that area, and if there's an opportunity to look at that. I think that the form of the building with the sort of split where you're kind of pulling it apart, what otherwise would be a typical double loaded slab, and creating those two wings is really creating an exciting architectural opportunity that I think you're leveraging in many ways. I think there's further opportunities that you can explore. I know, I think it was Ted commented on the, is the locker location there where you have the potential from, maybe some modification of your elevators to actually come off and everybody getting a view or something like that, that there might be some tweaking at that level that, improves the experience for the inhabitant on the floors and adds a little interest to that side. There's a few things in the ground area there. I think you have trees that are underneath the lockers in the ground plane. Be maybe a bit optimistic in terms of their survivability there, and so some niggly comment, to be honest with you, given everything else. And I think also that just there's a fair bit of comment on the character of the building and its its architectural assembly that you have. It's very exuberant, and in a kind of waterfront setting, it might seem to be the right strategy, and it certainly is something that various residential projects seem to focus in on, a sort of a pastiche strategy. And I think that you don't have to do that. I think the building form on its own is going to add the excitement and interest. And I think I really agree with a lot of what the other panelists have said about, just maybe simplifying and playing to your strength of the scheme and just emphasizing that. I think that it will, I think you've got great bones there, and I think you just got to work with those as far as you can. And I think you'll have great success. I mean, in terms of the massing, the one thing I'm not as excited about is that tower at the northwest corner. And I think as part of that, massaging, I guess at this point, you might want to take a look at that. I don't think I really have anything else. I think that also Jennifer's observations about, sustainability starting with some pretty fundamental building decisions, as the beginning of that story is totally on mark. And I think, if you can, try and capture those fundamental parts. But certainly your list of sustainability areas that you're exploring is not something we hear very often. It's pretty exciting to hear in this context, I have to say. And I would love to hear that you were able to do the fundamentals, but also, I would be amiss to just drive that and repeat it, even though almost every speaker has said it. Like, go for it. I mean, and I think that's great that you and your client are looking at that. I'll be honest with you, we're more into air-chilled heat pumps these days than geothermal. It seems to be the next wave, but geothermal is, in this case, may work for you as well. But that area of going for a less, efficient mechanical solution is definitely the way to go. So otherwise, I'd say great project, and we are all excited to see how it all turns out. So thank you. I don't know if you have any questions for us before we close out, but turn the floor over to you if you have any clarification or comment.
No real clarification or comment. That driveway location and the interface of pedestrians, that's been the subject of a lot of conversation with city transportation staff and urban design staff. We really appreciate your feedback on that element and all of your feedback on the other aspects of it.
Okay. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, thank you, everyone. That'll conclude the first of our 3 meetings today. We'll take a quick 15-minute break, and I'll meet everyone back for the 2:45. Okay? Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.